Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. All right.
Ready to start?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Three, two, one. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps, and we have cards. We finally have cards. Cards, cards,
Cards,
cards.
cards, cards, kobolds, and catacombs. I'm gonna say it now. I'm gonna start saying catacombs. I've dropped my caverns initiative. I don't think it's catching on.
No, no. I don't think it ever began. So
But
no, it
but I
definitely did
refuse
not
to
catch
spell
on.
K and C. It's K and percent C, not K the
Whatever.
letter N and C. That I'm sticking to my guns with.
Okay. Whatever you want, man. Let's get to what we want to talk about today,
Hmm.
which is the cards.
Yeah.
They've finally been revealed.
So far they've revealed how many cards has it been? Like 50 cards, almost 45 cards altogether.
Ooh, I don't know exactly how many, but it's been quite a lot.
It's been
Yeah.
quite a few cards that they've revealed, and we started out with only like 15ish. So we've seen a lot of new cards lately, and we're not going to go over all of them. That's just a little too much. And then we're going to be spoiling a lot of things for our card reveal stream, which, mark your calendars, is going to be on December 5th. So they've also revealed their next week's release schedule, and it conveniently ends on a Sunday again. So I'm thinking 4th is card dump. So we'll take one day to get all the numbers up. 5th we'll do our card review stream, and then the game will launch on the 7th.
Yeah. Doesn't that mirror the last launch then?
Yes,
Like
it
that
does.
schedule?
The schedule
Yeah.
on the weeks exactly mirrors the last schedule. So I'm hoping it works out that way. But anyway, what it means is we're just going to talk about the most interesting cards. So rather than get all the cards, most of which you'll never see in the arena or are crap, or are, like legendaries, and good, but you'll still never see them that often, we're going to focus on cards that talk about like directions that Blizzard's moving and cards that you'll just kind of see everywhere and that will define the meta. And again, it's only 45 cards. We don't know that much. It's 135 cards in the set. We've gotten 45 cards, and a disproportionate amount of them have been epics and legendaries, because those are like cooler, and Blizzard, they're more flashy, and Blizzard likes to show them off more. So the cards that you care about in the arena, though, are the stupid, normal, boring, neutral, common cards that are like a 3-mana 3/3. Huh? Will there be more 3-mana 3/3s? Or will there be more 5-mana 5/6s? Oh my god, if we have a 5-mana 5/6, meta changing, that no one else cares about who plays Constructed, because they will never be in a single Constructed deck. So unfortunately, those cards are not here. But we'll talk about the ones that kind of fit this criteria, and we'll do it again next week, and then we'll do the card reveal when they do the actual data dump. So it's a little bit speculative now when we talk about the KNC meta, but I think along with the rest of the community who's looking at it from more of a constructive perspective, we're kind of on board. We're coming to some like similar, if not like more drastic conclusions than they are with this set, and as well as some concerns later. But first, cards, Merps. Cards.
All right.
I said I would kick it off.
Yeah, you did.
So I'm going to kick it off with my favorite card of the set revealed so far. No, not a giant picture of my face.
Okay. Favorite card.
Favorite
Too
card.
fat. It is terrible.
So I haven't even told you guys. I just tweeted this out. I literally just got back and took a nap, but before that I was with my parents on Thanksgiving. And top 3 topics: 1, fatness, the defining topic of the whole entire weekend.
Nice.
2, why I don't visit more often, another popular topic. And 3, this is a new one. This single Chinese girl that they know, who is very attractive, went to Princeton and is now in Stanford for her PhD.
I think the attractiveness ties into the first and third thing.
I was about to say, I don't know what they meant by attractiveness.
I think they meant the first and third thing.
So that was my weekend. Glad to be back on Hearthstone, away from quasi-arranged marriages. Okay, so my card that I am most excited about actually was just revealed like yesterday. And I'm so happy they revealed this, because so far I've been quite underwhelmed by the Kobolds and Catacombs cards, and this one I'm very excited about. It is the Hoarding Dragon And I am almost certain now that no matter how many more cards they reveal in Kobolds and Catacombs, this is going to be my favorite card. Just like my favorite card, hands down. Not just because I'm kind of like a hoarding dragon in that I hoard all my gold in Hearthstone, but it is a 4-mana 5/6 with a death rattle that says give your opponent 2 coins. And as soon as you see this, you may be reminded, if you're an old school or older school Hearthstone player, you may be reminded of a certain other dragon that we used to all love to hate.
Yep, it is the Hungry Dragon, which was similarly a dragon and also 4-mana 5/6, but it instantly summoned a random 1-mana minion for your opponent. And Hungry Dragon, if you want a little bit of history about the card, it was a card that was highly touted before it came out. And then people started drafting it. And then we realized, like, man, that 1-mana minion is pretty annoying.
Yep.
And it made such a big difference. Like, that was something which everyone kind of overlooked as it was coming out. It's like, dude, it's a 1-mana minion. It doesn't matter. It's like a 1/1, a 1/2. It'll never matter. And
even if it was like a 2/1, it would be a 5/6, a 5/4 in stats, which is a totally normal 4-drop.
Exactly. So the randomness plus the fact that you're giving your opponent something on the board
that you then have to clear.
Right. And these days, something like a Hungry Dragon would be even more dangerous.
Well, that'd be awful.
Right? Yeah. But anyways, go on with Hoarding Dragon.
So Hoarding Dragon, I like, one, because there is no randomness. 0 randomness in this card. It's a much better Hungry Dragon. And 2, it's very well designed. At 6 health, coming out on turn 4 potentially, it's usually not going to die for at least 1 more turn. So they're not going to get the coins on their next turn. They're going to get the coins like 2 turns after that, earliest, generally. And so the tempo you're giving them is delayed a bit. And at that point, the ramp also matters a little bit less.
Right.
Like, there's not a lot of 8 drops, 9 drops, and 10 drops you really want to ramp up to. So they are still getting the tempo, but the ramp effect is a little less. And more than that, this is a solid 4-drop that you can play. Like, is it better than a Yeti? I'm going to come out and say I predict, and again, I won't know until like we put this on the algorithm, but I'm pretty sure this is better than a Yeti. That's my prediction of how it'll come out. No promises, but it's certainly not to the overpoweredness of like a Keening Banshee, right? Which is like a little too good for the curve, with a little too small of a downside. So this is like an example that I think is a perfectly designed arena card. It is really good to be played. It reinforces your curve. It is neutral so everyone can play it, and it has a quirk to it. So this is also going along with the theme of Kobolds and Catacombs that we are seeing, which is that dragons are going to be a thing again. This is going to be the Blackrock Dragon, Blackrock Mountain set that's coming out. It's not going to be as focused on dragons, but it's a larger set, so they'll probably release as many playable dragons as that set. And that set really made dragons like a thing. So I think we're going to see the resurgence of a bunch of dragon cards.
Yeah, with this card, you really are asking the question, do I want to gain an extra mana this turn to give my opponent like 2 extra mana
later?
Like at least a turn delayed. Right.
You also get card advantage, though, because you also just have a bigger thing. They can use the coin to get more tempo out, but they still have the thing in the hand in order to do it. Yeah.
So I think this card is just very well designed as well, and certainly avoids some factors, which we'll talk about later, that I don't like about some of these cards. But yeah, this is going to be fun, and I'm definitely going to be drafting this a lot. I can't really see this as terrible, but once again, I haven't seen the rest of the cards yet, and in the back of my mind, I'm always just like, we were wrong about Hungry Dragon, you know?
Yeah, but now our algorithm is much more sophisticated than it used to be, and it's dealt with things like this before. So I think once we put in the algorithm, it will give a good, solid answer, and that I'm pretty confident in that.
Yeah,
but also it's just that it's something. It's a lot of what Kobolds and Catacombs are doing. It's remixing, right? It's like KFT. It's remixing a lot of concepts we've seen before.
Right.
Okay, great. So that's Hoarding Dragon. What's your most interesting? So we each picked like 3 interesting cards that we wanted to talk about.
Just stuff we want to talk about, right? Not necessarily any criteria in these picks, but my pick for these interesting cards is Lone Champion, which is a neutral rare card. And we're starting off with some neutrals because you're going to see these really often. So Lone Champion is a 3-mana 2/4 neutral rare minion that has a battle cry. If you control no other minions, gain Taunt and Divine Shield. This is just a good card. And it'll certainly be better in like certain kinds of decks. It'll be better in, for example, Rogue as well. But this is going to be a meta-defining card, not as in like it's meta-defining because it's so ridiculously OP and it's going to have like a Pyros level tier score. But this is meta-defining in the way.
Okay, hold that thought. I'll come back to Pyros after this, but finish.
Oh my gosh! Of course, this card is impacted by the number of 2-drops in the game, and what this does, which few cards can do, it allows you to go away from 2-drops as well and recoup some of what you lost on turn 2, because a 2/4 Taunt Divine Shield on turn 3 is overstated, right? It's quite good, and it's good in the way that like a Tar Creeper is just overstated on 3 as well. So this is just a high quality card that you will see very, very often, and it is impacted and impacts the 2-drop position, which, as we know, is very important in the arena.
Yeah. Right now, 3/2s are very good because there's a bunch of 3/3s. This is the counter to that, in that once you sprinkle in some 2/4s or like 3/4s or whatever, it changes the whole entire meta and what our assumptions about things are. So it's the balance between Raptors and how good they are versus Crocs, right? Like this will trade evenly with a Croc, it'll kill a Raptor straight out, whether it triggers or not. So whenever you have a neutral card that's definitely draftable, that you will draft when you see it, not because it's premium, but because if you need a curve card, it'll be there, and that it'll have this offering bonus, it's going to impact the meta. And like I don't think this card's very good. I'll come out and say this. I don't think this ability is anywhere near as good as people think it is. And I'm going to go break it down into 2 parts. One is trigger condition. Because it has a trigger condition that you have to control no other minions for this 3-mana 2/4 to get Taunt and Divine Shield, you can never protect a minion on the board with it. Like, that's already existing on the board. The only way to protect a minion on the board is in later turns, when you play this first, when you first trade off your board, then you play this, then you play the other minion with the rest of your mana. Otherwise, this minion is going to get hit and hurt on the next turn, and so it won't protect the minion you drop on the very next turn. And it can't possibly protect the minion you dropped the turn before, because it doesn't get Taunt if you still have that minion alive on the board. So, yes, sometimes Taunt is just about protecting your face, and it can protect things in the future if it stays up. And it does protect things on the same turn you play it, but that's it. It doesn't protect the most frequent times that you want to actually play this Taunt card, which is that you have a minion on the board, they didn't quite remove it, now you taunt it, and it's good. So I think you have to look at its Taunt ability more skeptically than you look at a normal Taunt ability. So that's whether it triggers or not, right? Like the function of it. And the second part is, a Divine Shield on a 2/4 is really not that good. Like, I think people are making a bigger deal out of it than it actually is. Because a Divine Shield, roughly, generally, if you average out in the course of gameplay, is worth something like 2 health. So if it triggers, you have like a 2/6 Taunt, which, yes, is really, really good for a 3-drop. But again, it has to trigger. And if it doesn't trigger, it's a 2/4 for a 3-drop, which is not good. It's like below average.
Yeah. And I think this is something that people need to understand, because I am seeing a lot of people saying, oh, 2/4 is average for 3. No, 2/4 is really bad for 3.
3/3 is bad for 3 too. 2/4 is bad for a 3.
Yeah. Because if you're looking at certain vanilla tests, if you want to talk about the vanilla test, you should be getting a 3-4,
Yeah.
which there aren't a lot of. And that's just because, like, don't be fooled into thinking, oh, it should be a 3-3 because most 3-drops I see are 3-3. Well, most of them also have an ability.
Yeah,
right?
most of them are pretty bad as drops.
Right. Most of them are bad, or they require a combo, or it's like 3-3 with an ability, right? Or the Ring Farseer, it has an ability. Like even Ironfur Grizzly has an ability. So those cards, 3-3 is not vanilla. So 3-4, you're giving up a very crucial attack in order to get the 2-4 body.
Yeah. Like, think about the trigger conditions. I'd rather have Earthen Ring Farseer's actual trigger than this guy's actual trigger. And the Earthen Ring Farseer's trigger ability percent, I think, is not going to be too much lower than this guy. So I think this guy will end up somewhere around an Earthen Ring Farseer. Like, not too much higher or too much lower.
Earthen Ring Farseer is quite good.
Yeah, it's good. Again, right? It's like a non-premium 3. I just don't want people, because I've seen people's comments on this. A lot of people actually think this is going to be a premium 3. It's not. It's going to be nowhere close to a premium 3.
Right. No, I think we're in agreement there. And once again, I don't want to think, because whenever I say it's meta defining, I think people automatically associate that with like, holy cow, this like Merps means is going to be an all-time like powerful cards. No, like meta defining cards aren't necessarily the strongest cards, right? It's like when Pit Fighter came out, that was a meta defining card.
It just has to be good enough to be drafted. And then it has to have the offering bonuses and be a neutral.
Right. So I think this is cool. Like these are the cards that I think people are saying it definitely has some constructed play, which is cool. But this is a card in which we're definitely going to see a lot of in Arena, and I like it. I like the design of it. I think it's good, right? So yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. So I'm going to talk about a similar card. We're going to move on to some class cards now. I really like this card that was revealed last week. Benevolent Jinn, DJINN. It is a Paladin common card, 3 mana, 2/4, elemental. The first elemental that's been added to the game since elementals became a thing in Ongoro that is not a shaman or mage card. So very interesting there is that we're making shaman kind of an elemental. Oh, that's not even true. Warlock has it, and Warrior has one. Okay, so this is like that. They're adding a little bit of elemental spice to the Paladin as well. But I just think it's interesting that they're still printing elementals. And again, 2/4, right? More 2/4s in the meta. You start seeing a trend here. Whereas previously, in both Ongoro and KFT, 3/3s were the 3-drop dominance. So you're getting the Raptor, like Raptors are better. Now 2/4s are starting to make a comeback. So Crocs are going to start catching up to Raptors. And the ability for this card, 3 mana, 2/4, is at the end of your turn, restore 3 health to your heroes. So you're guaranteed 3 health, which is not bad for a, like, sort of passing the vanilla stat, like, minion. But each turn it stays alive, you get another 3 health. Not the most powerful card in the game when you first look at it, but then consider how often you've been screwed or just annoyed by a bartender.
Yeah.
Right? And what does a bartender do?
I'm not going to enjoy this card as a hunter.
No, a bartender heals for one measly health. This guy heals for 3. And
yeah,
like it seems like, oh, it's just 3 health. It adds up really quickly. Like it stays alive for 2-3 turns, and you are never getting that lethal again. And this very much fits in with what the Paladin does, which is that Paladin has always had a healing element, and it's always struggled to actually have cards that healed itself. Like, it was always this weird thing where, yes, Paladins heal, but no, they don't heal themselves. Shamans used to suffer from it even more until, I think starting in MSG, they started releasing a lot of Shaman healing cards. So now they're pretty good. Paladin's still somewhat of an issue. Like, when you face these classes as a hunter, you want to be really, really, really worried that they're going to heal themselves. And you're really not that worried as a Paladin that they're going to heal themselves. You're worried about, like, Steed.
Yeah, whenever I face Paladin, I'm just like, the chances of them having a heal, I'm really just afraid of True Silver Champion. Right?
Yep.
And with that, it's like, it's not going to dissuade me.
Ivory Knight. Like
Yeah.
that's the only thing that's really going to heal, or like lay on hands, right? These are like very like
Right.
epic kind of like cards.
But those are like really slow. Benevolent Jin is one of the cards that changes the way I play. Like I
Mhm.
fear Benevolent Jin whenever I play Hunter against Paladin now,
Yep.
because it's just a
Common
little
has
bit
an
too
offering
annoying.
bonus good enough to be in every deck whenever you see it, you know? Like, yeah, maybe
Yeah,
not super premium, but definitely a good 3-drop. Like, I would think, personally, I think Benevolent Jin is probably on par with the lone champion for in a paladin. Although I think most people don't see it that way.
I could see that. I mean, we've also, I think we've talked about this, gotten to a point where face damage has become more important,
Hmm.
right? Health and everything. So yeah,
Yeah,
this is
and
pretty
it's
interesting.
especially because paladins are getting another like a rare weapon in this set that's also going to be pretty good. We're not going to
Right.
go into it, but unidentified maul. It's one of the unidentified weapon series that gets identified when it comes into your hand and gets like this ability. But it's otherwise a 3-mana 2/2 weapon, and the abilities are like give all your minions divine shield, or give a +1 attack to all your minions, or like summon 2/1/1s. They're like decent stuff, right? It's like going to be and it's a weapon, which are always good. So just because it's not the most OP weapon, it's still a weapon. And whenever you have weapons, you take more damage to your face.
Yep. All right. So the next card I want to talk about, and it's nice that we've been building up to this one. We're going to talk about Psychic Scream, which is a 7-mana epic spell, pre-spell. Psychic Scream says shuffle all minions into your opponent's deck. That's all minions on board. It costs 7 mana,
Including yours.
including yours. Shuffle them into your opponent's deck. Now, you can think of a lot of other AoEs that are in the game. Twisting Nether comes to mind, right? For 1 more mana, you destroy all of them. There's certain advantage.
Because remember, destroying them is not as good as shuffling them in your deck. Remember
No.
this card, Entomb. Like, shuffling things into your deck is usually better because it gets rid of death rattles. In only very, very, very rare cases would you rather destroy a card than shuffle it.
And of course, deck. Like, because people are going to be like, oh, but Entomb is shuffle in your deck, and Psychic Scream is shuffle into their deck. A lot of this just doesn't matter.
It's like, arena. It doesn't matter. Arena.
Like, deck manipulation has not gotten to a point in the arena where this matters a lot. Like, does it, quote, matter? Sure, everything matters, but let's not pretend like, we have great ways of manipulating your deck through card draw or whatever in the arena. So Psychic Scream is just ridiculous. It gets rid of death rattles, and it's a total clean wipe of the board for Priest that, because obviously they need, because they were the class definitely lacking any sort of AoE or comeback mechanic.
You remember back when people were pissed off about Flamestrike? And being like, oh no, I'm getting destroyed by Flamestrike in the arena. How unfair.
I know. This is, it just seems more and more ridiculous, right? Well, it seems ridiculous even in the past couple of expansions where Flamestrike had a reduced offering rate, but Dragonfire Potion did not.
Yep.
In which case,
let's be honest, the Flamestrike complaints have really been incredibly ridiculous since MSG came out. Like, as soon as there was such a thing as Spellfire Potion and Dragonfire Potion, it blew like Flamestrike out of the water. And then there became Meteors, and you're just like, come on, Blizzard, just put it back. Like, give mages back their Flamestrike. It's not going to matter that much.
Yeah, like, people don't complain about it. Well, maybe they don't complain about it because it is still nerfed, but we should not be seeing any sort of pushback if they reverted the Flamestrike offering nerf.
Yeah.
Because of stuff like Psychic Scream that's coming out, and because of stuff that's already in the game as well.
There's someone in chat that says, well, Priest does deserve more AoE. It's the class that lacks the most AoE. I'm hoping that's sarcasm.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look,
there was a lack of a kappa in that message, but I'm hoping it's sarcasm, because if you have not realized, this is This is a problem now with priests. Like, sure, warlocks have even more AoE, but we're at the point right now where priests and warlocks are having more AoE than mages.
Yeah.
And that's weird, just to start with, but I guess that's what they wanted. I guess when they MSG came out and they were like, well, now these are the three classes tied together, you know, they all are potions and they all do AoE, is maybe it was kind of a sign, right? That they're going to bring priests and warlocks in line with mage when it comes to just having a ton of AoEs.
I guess so. But this is one of those cards that, man, I hate. Because how do you really play around this, right? It's not even damage. I can't even drop death rattles anymore.
No, nothing. Right? You can't play around this.
I can't play around this because against the priest, what happens if I slow down, right? Because my only play around it is to be like, okay, well, now going into his turn 7, I will anti-tempo. Like, that's my only play around it if I'm afraid of Psychic Scream. I'm going to card draw. Mm-hmm. I'm going to... yeah, I'm basically just going to card draw or, like, I don't know, heal up my face or something. Just anti-tempo stuff in order to use my mana, or just don't use my mana. And then that's, you know, that just gives a priest more time to do other stuff, right?
And it's priest. All they need is time.
All they need is time, and then they just win.
And especially the board. Like, you're going to let them drop stuff on the board that you can't take care of? No, you're going to play into Psychic Scream pretty much like every time.
Right. And that's the situation that I hate, when you have to play into something because you have no other choices around it, and then
it's horrible. It's an absolutely horribly designed card for the arena.
Oh well.
So moving on.
Yeah.
To a slightly better designed but still problematic card, our first Warlock card. So in this whole entire reveal season, there has been no non-legendary Warlock cards that have been revealed. It's been kind of weird. And people have been speculating that there's some like crazy things going on internally in Warlock. Because if you remember, in Angora, we didn't see any rogue cards for like the longest time. And then when we saw the rogue cards, we realized why. It was because the rogue cards are ridiculous and horrible and should not be allowed to exist. Either because they were too powerful or because they really sucked too much and they didn't really fit into anything else Angora was doing. So who knows what's happening with Warlock here. But they revealed one card, and it is Void Lord. 9 mana, epic, 3/9 demon. Taunt, Death Rattle. Summon 3 1/3 demons with taunt. Basically Void Walkers. So it's a 3/9 that summons 3 Void Walkers, which gives it a total of 18 health's worth of taunt divided over 4 minions.
Taunt, 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 taunt. Yeah.
Taunt, taunt, taunt,
this taunt. This seems ridiculous. I look forward to getting this from Bane of Doom. I also look forward to my opponents getting it off of Bane of Doom and ending the game immediately because of that. Man, this is an annoying card. I like the direction that Blizzard is taking these big cards. Like, because, okay, we saw it last expansion with Obsidian Statue, right?
Yep.
Obsidian Statue was the card in which I was like, damn, this is powerful. I'm like, you know what?
But it's fair.
It's fair. Yeah.
Like, that's what a 9 mana card's got to do.
Yeah. Like, if we're talking about a premium 9-drop, right? Because you have to make premium high drops, and I'm just like, that is the power level that it has to be at. And I'm looking at Void Lord, I'm like, good design, I like it. You know, it does something that Warlocks really need. Super annoying and just good value, interesting design, like well made. I just think it, like, design-wise, I'm very impressed with Blizzard for stuff like the Obsidian Statue and for the Void Lord. Like, these are cards that don't break the game, but definitely provide really, really good late-game options.
Yep. And if you want to compare this to something like Spikered Steed, which is the other super taunt that's in the game, Spikered Steed gives 12 health by itself, and then it adds on to whatever you're taunting. Let's just assume an average of 4 health. That's 16 health's worth of taunt, which compared to this being 18 is very similar, and that is only 6 mana. So Void Lord is definitely quite a bit power level down from Spike Steed, which is good because Spike Steed is a super premium and is too powerful. Like Void Lord is like the balanced version of Spike Steed. Like it does the same thing, but it's balanced. And I want to kind of like pause things here, and we've gone over a few cards, you know, between the Lone Champion, the Psychic Stream, the Benevolent Djinn, the Void Lord. You see what's happening, right? Like
what?
You see what all these cards have in common that Blizzard's doing, right?
What? They're slow?
They're single-handed responses to aggro.
Yeah, they're slow.
It's not just that they're slow and do other things.
Sorry.
They're slow and specifically designed. They're not even slow. Like, Lone Champion's not even slow. They're just specifically designed to stop aggro. Lone Champion doesn't even protect minions on the board. Yeah, they slow down the game. And more than that, if you put a lot of stuff out on the board, you're relying on that to win somehow, it's not gonna work. Like, this is going to have a really large effect on the meta because there's so many of these cards. This is not like a one-off thing. KFT wasn't very slow. Like, you remember when Tar Creepers first came out and were everywhere, and the whole game just, like, crawled, right? Like, there were so many things on the board, you couldn't go in, hunters didn't do things anymore. Like, it was slow, and you required giant swings to do stuff, because otherwise the board just froze. KFT came out, and it was a more normal kind of set, and it incentivized you to put stuff on the board, because you can then buff them or trade them away, or, you know, a lot of its stuff is board-centric. Now you're getting a set where, from everything that's coming out so far, it seems to be saying, and the other cards revealed, by the way, also were, generally speaking, pretty slow, or card draw-oriented, or, you know, things involving a slow game. It's giving everyone the tools to survive to the late game, and basically, once again, taking aggro out of the equation. I mean, that's the direction Kobolds and Catacombs is about to head. Just not saying that's exactly where it's headed because we don't know all the cards, but from all these cards that are coming out, I see a pretty clear pattern. Anyway, on to the last card.
Last card I want to talk about is a Druid card, which is another epic spell. It's 4 mana, Branching Paths, and this is the first time we see the choose twice mechanic. So choose twice through 3 options. Number 1 is draw a card. Number 2 is give your minions +1 attack, or number 3 is gain 6 armor. Now, how it works is you get all 3 choices in front of you. You pick one, and then all 3 choices pop up again, and you pick again. So you could double up if you wanted. Like, if you wanted to give your minions +2 attack, you would just choose +1 attack and +1 attack. If you want to divide it up, like let's say I want to draw a card and gain 6 armor, you could do that as well. I just think this card is really cool because, number 1, it goes down goes down a path. It goes down a path that is very familiar with Druids, which is flexibility, right? Druids have always been about flexibility and choices, and I think that part of what makes this card really interesting for me is exactly how fair it is, because it is like almost perfectly, I would say, like perfectly costed, and the choices are sort of perfectly laid out for the cost, in which you don't exactly quite get to 4 mana for some of these choices, like
for none of these choices.
But what's up?
For none of these choices.
Yeah, none of these choices. But you do get the flexibility, right? You do get the situational sort of response. So you either get like a mini bloodlust, we can call it that. You either get like a bad nourish, or you get like, you know, just a big
not heal. A bad nourish, right? Or bad arcane intellect. It's only drawing 2 cards.
Yeah, true. Bad nourish or a bad arcane intellect, whatever you want to call it. I just compared it with nourish because it's, you know, from the same class. But you do get to mix and match, right? Sometimes bloodlust is, you know, just overkill. Like, you don't need that much attack, so you want to draw a card and just give a little bit of attack. Sometimes you, you know, want to draw a card and you want to extend the game, so you draw 2 cards. Like, it's I love the design of it, and I think it's like well costed. So this is just one of those cards that I think is another example of good design by Blizzard.
Yep, I agree. Um, all right, bonus time, bonus card time. Before we get into the themes, of this, I'm gonna go over one more card. It is Raven Familiar. I'm gonna go over this very quickly. It's a Mage Beast, which is kind of weird.
Mage Beast.
It's also a 2-mana 2/2, which tells you that this Raven Familiar is like better than like sheep and weasels and like every other animal that we've seen that's a normal animal. So this is like an attack Raven, and it even has 2 health. So you may think it's just a bird, but it's like a substantial bird, you know.
Yo, this bird can take on 2 sheeps and win.
Yeah, well, it won't win. It'll die too.
Oh.
It'll only kill 1 sheep, and the second sheep, it'll be too much for it to handle. But you know, it's a pretty. I'm just saying it's big for a Raven. Okay, I would have thought a Raven's a 1/1.
Okay.
Or a 2/1.
Sure.
Anyway, the battle cry is reveal a spell in each deck. If yours costs more, draw it. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it is Joust. It is exactly Joust. Joust is back. And as we found out from before, when Joust was on... God, what was it on? It was on that 3/2 Hunter card? Remember that?
3/2 Hunter
It was
card.
a 3/2 for 2 mana, and it was a Hunter card, and it had Joust, draw a card, like draw the card if it wins, right? It's the same thing as it's happening here.
Oh, King's Alec.
King's Alec, that's right. And it was like the highest rated like Hunter card for a bit.
Yeah.
Even though it was not like helping with Reach. It was just so insanely good that the other Reach cards for Hunter weren't even beating this one. So this is not quite as good. It's only a 2/2, but otherwise it's doing the same thing. It's just drawing a card. Like 40% of the time. And the card that it draws is going to be bigger than normal. Because it has to win the Joust. So, I mean, it's not King's Alec levels of good, but it's good. It's very good. And this Joust mechanic that literally nobody liked and nobody asked for it to come back, and everyone told Blizzard, thank God that mechanic is gone and no one wants to see it again. Please don't print it again. Blizzard printed. I'm not saying like arena players didn't like it or like pros didn't like it. I'm saying nobody liked it.
Yeah. It was not very great.
And they brought it back even after getting feedback. So I can't wait, assuming this is happening at some point, for Blizzard to like be interviewed, like one of the designers to be interviewed by one of the websites or whatever, and like just explain why they wanted to bring Joust back. Like, what was the point of this? Did they actually get good internal feedback, or like, you know, feedback from a certain group of players they're trying to appease that we just don't know about? Like, what's happening here? I'm just curious, because this seems like bad card design 101. The power levels are going to be fine, no like balance issues, but just bad card design. Like, by total randomness, sometimes you get a spell that's really big, and sometimes you don't.
Yep, I agree. This is a card, like, we've been giving a lot of praise to Blizzard for some of the card designs. I think this is just terrible design.
It's not just terrible, it's inexplicable what they're thinking of, because they actually had a whole test of a whole expansion about how this mechanic worked. Like, no one could include it into actual decks, right? Because it was too random for, like, you know, for real good decks. And then no one liked it anywhere else because it was too random and you had no control over the random. You didn't feel rewarded when you got it. You just felt punished when you didn't get it. And you got punished much more than you got rewarded because you lose 60% of the time. Like, when designing something, if you want it to be a little random, make sure you win a lot. Don't just like, or like, if it's going to be a losing thing, you have to lose like 90% of the time, so that no one has any expectation of getting it, and it's just a pure bonus. Like, 60-40, as in 60% loss, 40% win, is like the most depressing win rate.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. I'm gonna take that and bring us back into the KFC themes. Merps, why don't you take it away? What are we looking at when we're looking at KFC? Not KFC. They're making it so confusing.
KFT, but also wrong expansion. So you got the name wrong and you got the expansion wrong.
K and C. The Cabals and Catacombs expansion. What are the themes we're looking at right now, and why is this problematic?
All right. first of all, I hope you get some food. It seems like you are hungry. But I think the first theme we want to talk about, and we have talked about, is the RNG factor, right? We talked about it a little bit today, and we talked about it a little bit before. It seems like a lot of cards in this expansion are very RNG dependent, and not only that, like that is sort of a high percentage of their effect or their power, right? It's okay if you're dealing with a little bit of RNG, especially if it's like controllable RNG. And the example I always like to make is Mad Bomber, right? Mad Bomber is it an RNG card?
Yeah,
yes, it is.
Very RNG.
Can it potentially give huge swings of tempo as well on the board through RNG? Yes, it can. But typically, the effect of the Mad Bomber isn't super high, and there's a very defined control aspect of the Mad Bomber, right? So all these things sort of negate the just totally kooky random RNG.
Yeah. And the negation is, if you have nothing on the board, it can't hurt you.
Right.
That's the control. At its basis, if you have thrown all of your minions away and you play it, it can at most not help you. It will never hurt you or deal like 3 damage to your face, which is not the most awful thing in the world.
Right. So literally, it can hurt you.
Yes, but it can't hurt you on the board if you don't have minions for it to hurt, right? The randomness will sometimes remove that pesky 2/1, sometimes it doesn't. So it's unreliable, but you have a control that you, like a floor that you could do. And you kind of determine the amount of risk you want to take.
Right. And in this expansion, unfortunately, there is quite a bit of RNG. Was there a specific card you want to talk about, ADWCTA?
You mean every card? I think they did a count, and like literally like more than half the cards that have been revealed so far have an RNG element to it, which is insane. Like usually, like maybe like I don't know, a 1/6 to an 1/8 of a card of the cards released have an RNG element to it.
Right.
It's like 1/2 right now.
Right, and I would say one mechanic that they're introducing is just RNG, right? The recruit mechanic, where you basically summon a random minion out of your deck. There's no the skill, if you want to call it the quote skill involved in any recruit mechanic that you can use in Constructed, which comes from deck construction, which comes from deck manipulation that is present in Constructed but not in Arena. Like all of that is gone. So in the Arena, what you're just left with is just, all right, well, let's recruit the Bog Creeper. Let's try not to recruit like the big time Racketeer, right? Yep. That's basically it. Like get the Bog Creeper, don't get the big time Racketeer, win the game. That's it. It's very simple like that. And another card that is
I want to harp on that a little bit more. A lot of the times, when people read things or they're delving into what the set is and they listen to other streamers or professionals talk about cards, they internalize some of this for Arena, and that's always wrong. Because Arena's a different game. Like, people can talk about the recruit mechanic all they want in various ways. In Arena, it's way worse. Way worse. Because you can't determine what's in your deck. Like, maybe the one that you can take a random 8-mana minion, you can, sort of. But honestly, like, let's say recruit a card that's between 1 and 4 mana. You can't control that. Recruit a spell or like whatever, right? Just like anything that pulls stuff out of your deck or looks at things out of your deck, you cannot control if you are drafting an Arena deck. So yes, in a Raven Familiar situation, you could stack your deck with only high spells and be good with it. In Arena, you can't, because when that Breath of Syndragosa, when that Frostbolt, when that Primordial Glyph comes up, you're still gonna take it, even if you have a Raven Familiar in your deck. That's not gonna ever change how you draft your deck. So it's not a drafting skill. It's certainly not a playing skill. It's no skill, and it creates this RNG variance that is way wider than in Constructed.
Right. And,
like, we're not talking like in Constructed, the variance is between, like a 1 and a 2, and in Arena it goes up to a 4, and that's a lot. We're saying in constructed, if you're recruiting like only like big things that are 7 mana or above, in arena that can go down to 1 mana almost always. So you're expanding your RNG-ness by like exponential factors because of what you just have to put into your deck.
Yep. And we see a recruit spell card, right? Like it's in the Grand Archivist, which is essentially recruiting a spell. Grand Archivist is an 8 mana 4/7 neutral, so you see it for every single class. At the end of your turn, cast a spell from your deck with targets chosen randomly. This is basically just recruit for spells, and it's even I don't know if you could call it worse, but it's even more random because if there is a target involved, it randomly chooses the target. So we have recruit for minions, which it just summons it, it comes out. And we also have recruit for spells, and we've only seen it on the Grand Archivist, but we also see other RNG in terms like regarding spells with the Raven as well, and who knows what else we'll see.
Yeah. So the RNG is bad, and it's bad for constructed, but it's way worse for arena. And I want to jump to the next theme that's going to come out of KNC, which is that swings are going to be big. We're not just talking about like Psychic Scream creating big swings. We're not just talking about like they're making cards more interesting, so big swings are happening. But dragons always create big swings. That's going to be a theme. Literally all the spell stones, they're just designed to create big tempo swings. Like you hold them in your hand until they get over tempoed, and then you play them. So they either you can't trigger them, and they kind of just are like or suck, or they're ridiculously amazing cards tempo wise. Like this is how this entire set has been designed. It's to make you try to create the big swings and to deal with RNG, right? Like some RNG isn't even bad; it just has RNG. Like you look at like elixirs or the unidentified mall, unidentified elixir. Like it comes into your hand with an ability. Yeah, that's RNG. It's hard to deck build with it, but for arena, that's totally fine. Because once it's in your hand, then you determine what to do with it. Before that, you're just drafting it as a value proposition. It's totally fine. It's kind of weird and constructed to try to deal with all of it, but in arena, it's good. However, most of the RNGs are way more difficult to deal with in arena and cause bigger swings. So when you have all these swings, again, we're talking about the desperation meter last week, that becomes the only skill that's available in arena if your swings get big enough. Like, what's the point of gaining 1 tempo or like, a quarter of a card advantage if whether your opponent has card X or not, or whether condition Y triggers or not, will cause a 5-card swing? Like, what's the point of gaining these incremental advantages that normally characterize good gameplay if that's the case? If that's the case, then you're going to win and lose based on 1, randomness, 2, how good your cards are, and 3, how frequently and how well timed your desperation meter is. That's it. That's a pretty like watered down game from what the arena normally is. And Recruit is hugely guilty of that. So again, I'm always hoping that Recruit cards are so bad that it doesn't really matter and it won't be in the arena game. Like Grand Archivist is so bad. It's so insanely bad. No one should take it. Just no one should ever draft this card. And so it's fine. Like, you have your Guild Recruiter, another neutral card, right? It's 5 mana, 2/4. Recruit a minion that costs 4 mana or less. You'll sometimes have to be forced to take it, but for the most part, no one's like, you're not going to draft it for the most part. So it's fine because it's so bad that people aren't going to take it. That warrior card that's just like recruit a minion for 6 mana, that's just a horrible card. No one's going to take that card. But when Recruit and these kinds of RNG mechanics starts working themselves into decent cards, that's when you have a problem. Oh, another card that's about the big swings. I was talking about dragons. Duskbreaker, 4 mana, 3/3. Yeah. Dragon, Battlecry. If you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage to all other minions. Also known as get a free 4 mana effect. Like, the effects that dragons have triggered have never been more than 2 mana's worth. Like on a card, like on a 2 mana card. It's like a Shadow or Pain. It's like a, discover a card. It's like that kind of stuff. This just doubled it.
Yeah, this is a Hellfire effect, which
this is horribly awful for the arena because none of this is under your control. And there's nothing you can do with these. It's like you can make these offering rates appear lower or higher or whatever. It's just, it's going to be in the arena. It's part of this set. You can't take them out of the arena, or else you have to take all of them out of the arena, and that's like way too many cards. Then what are you doing with the set, right? It's just, there's no way to solve for this problem when you're creating a set like this. So,
yep.
You want to talk about the last thing that absolutely sucks about this expansion, which is just, we're suspecting it. It's not 100% sure. This is the most iffy of the three predictions.
Right. So this is one that we don't know because we haven't seen all the cards yet. But questionable curves, right? That is the last, I guess, theme that we see. And, you know, it's nothing brand new. It just goes along with kind of the design theory that Blizzard has been going with for, like, I would say the past year or so, where they've identified, like, okay, well, we still need to print small cards. That has to happen. But what are we going to do with these small cards? We're going to make sure that the small cards are not aggressively statted, or they're not like overstatted. Like, no more zombie chows, no more haunted creepers. What we're going to do is make these small cards have like potentially big abilities, right? Like, these are cards that people can combo off of. These are cards that people can be happy playing in the mid to late game in constructed decks in order to get like a good effect from them. But the problem with that is, like, we're missing drops, right? Like, the days of the, you know, Worgen Infiltrator into Bloodfin Raptor into a 3-drop, like, those days are like really, like, they've been gone essentially, and they are like definitely not coming back, it seems, with this expansion, where Blizzard has said, we want the game to start a little bit later, and we want them to be more wacky, like more tricky, more, quote, fun, right? Like fun and interactive. So I think even though we haven't seen all of the cards revealed yet, we're going to see the same progression. Like, if it is a early card, it definitely won't be overstated. I think you're going to be lucky to get stuff that's just even vanilla statted.
Yeah. I don't think you're getting Raptors and Crocs and 3/4s and 4/3s and, you know, Yetis and whatnot.
Yeah. And if you are, you know, they're going to temper it with other cards, right? Like, for example, they gave Mage's Cold Wraith in the last expansion, which is a 3-mana 3/4 with a good effect. And you're just like, wow, that's a great card, right? But then you look at all the other cards that Mage's got, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, Mages weren't doing really that much with the overstatedness of the Cold Wraith. So we're going to see the same thing. And the days are gone in which, like, you can really count on, you know, go into the draft and be like, I'm going to get my 1s, I'm going to get my 2s, everything's going to work out fine. I'm just going to draft normally, and my curve will work itself out.
You won't have a curve. Here's the problem. If you count the curve up, just count your ideal curve. I don't care, like, what you think the numbers are. It's going to come out around 20 cards out of 30 cards need to be curve cards. As in, these are going to be the cards that end up getting played on your curve turn. And if you don't have them, you're just going to skip that turn or play a very under-tempoed card. In the classic set, if you do arena drafting by, like, you know, their current system, you get like half. You get like 15 drafting normally by power, which is problematic because now you're undercurved. And that's what we see, right? Everything's like, every deck is a little undercurved. It's hard to get a good curve thing going. You need to have a class like Hunter that really, like, has class cards that are pushing for the curve. The problem with the expansions, if you count them up, it's not 2/3 of the cards are curve cards. It's not even 1/2 of the cards are curve cards. Like, I did a count of all the release cards before today's releases, and for curve cards, it was 1/3. 1/3 of the cards can be played on curve. And I'm counting like 2 2s on turn 2. That's counting as a curve card right now.
Right, because the power level of 2s has gone down. Like,
yeah. Well, the tempo power level.
Yeah, sorry. The tempo power level. The power level in general is
gone up
very, very high. Yeah.
So what's happening is we're going to have even less. Like, there was a 2-drop apocalypse back in KFT, and right now, I don't know, I rarely get my 6/2s that I need for a deck. Gonna just make do with 5. I don't care what class I'm playing. I'm hero powering on turn 2 as a shaman a whole bunch of times. That's not good. It's one of the reasons why shaman sucks. It's not going to get better from what they've shown us so far. Again, this is the weakest prediction of the 3 because it is like the neutral cards mostly determine this. And we just don't have a lot of neutral cards yet. There's a whole crap ton of common neutral cards and rare neutral cards that we just haven't seen. And maybe they are going to stuff a whole bunch of curve cards in there. You know, like a Hoarding Dragon. It's a good start. But at least from the cards that they've shown us, it's really making this more worrisome as well. It's not even like curve cards are as good as they used to be, right? With all these giant taunts or whatever. You can't use curve cards to really like push face as well anymore after Cabals and Catacombs comes out. Like before, you were like, oh, Paladins could potentially totally stop me. Other than that, nothing else totally stops me. Now it's like, oh, every class can totally stop me.
Yep. It's very fair.
Really? What class can't totally stop someone that just like pushes out very heavily? Like Rogue? Anyone else?
I think right now it's just Rogue.
Because even Rogue Druids have that stall card now with the Spreading Plague. So Druids have Spreading Plague, Paladins have Steed, Mages, Warlocks, and what do you call Mages, Warlocks, Shamans, and Priests have really large double-sided board clears or other kinds of clears.
Right. I guess Hunters are still lacking a strong ability to stop you, right? If you get going first.
So it's Warrior, which can't do anything anyway. So they're just, they're bad at everything. So of course they're bad at this. Rogues, which focuses on individual removal in the early game. So presumably you can't snowball. That's the whole point.
Right.
And Hunters, which itself is always trying to push. So, welcome to the arena. Aggro decks are dead.
Yep. That's basically it. And does that mean that you should never play Hunter?
Yes.
Maybe, but maybe not.
You should definitely not play Hunter like super tempo in KNC. Unless, we don't know the cards again. But if the cards are coming out the way they are coming down now.
We've seen it happen this way, in which for the past 2 expansions, there have been pockets in which people, during the shift, people have identified periods in which people get a little bit too greedy, right? And then with Hunter, it's never about you having the perfect curve. It's just you having a significantly better curve than your opponent. And
your opponent not having a bomb that can reduce everything you've ever done to nothing.
That's true. And we do have those bombs.
And every class has that bomb now.
Right. Every class does have that bomb. But then we look at sort of like Psychic Scream. It's like, is it bad? Yeah, it's bad. But I'm like, it is a turn later than Dragonfire Potion. Like, what do I fear more? Psychic Scream or Dragonfire Potion?
Dragonfire.
It's Dragonfire Potion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, yeah.
But now every priest is going to have basically a Dragonfire Potion or a Psychic Scream.
They will. But the one turn makes a huge difference. Because that's just, that's another turn for me to deal damage, right? In fact,
you actually have to win though. You actually have to kill them before then, because otherwise it's priest. They have a hero power that cancels out your hero power. You're not really a hunter against the priest.
Right. So we go back to a situation where it's like, after they Dragonfire me on 6, I set up on 7, and I have to hope that they don't have anything else, right?
Like a Psychic Scream.
Yeah. Now it's a Psychic Scream on top of that, which does make it hard, but we have seen Hunter be able to sort of punish people just because there's always a time in the meta where people are just like, oh, I'm gonna like people have a control sort of arms race, right? And then it gets to a point where you're a Hunter and your deck isn't that great, but you're beating those guys that are trying to out control the people that are already playing super control.
I think once you add bombs into the mix, that's no longer the case. I think, but what were you talking about before? What kind of metas are you talking about? You're talking about Mage, who can't heal. You're talking about Warlocks, who really have a health problem. You're not talking about Priest, who can heal, about Paladin, who can heal, about Druid, who basically can heal.
If we do see the rise of Priest and Paladins, that is a different beast than Warlocks and Mages, right? Which are naturally more...
Even
like,
Druids are a huge problem for Hunters.
Oh yeah, Druids have always been an issue. Like, Crypt Lords are still going to be here, right? And those things might as well just be a 1 attack, 20 health minion.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just, I think the problem is it's fundamentally different this time around because of the number of bombs. Like, I think what you're thinking of is just historical circumstances that happen to deal with very specific classes and the tools that they have. This is now a game-wide revolution against aggro. And if you're wondering why this is happening, and if you're wondering why no one is claiming that aggro is totally dead in Constructed, it's because aggro is not dead in Constructed. None of these cards are anywhere near as bad for aggro in Constructed as they are in Arena. Because in Constructed, aggro is much more aggro. And aggro is designed to eat through more than 30 health. Because it's constructed. Like, as tightly as you can make control decks, you can make aggro decks equally as tight. More tight, because you have more consistency of being able to play stuff. Like,
right.
That's a fundamental difference between aggro in Arena and aggro in Constructed. Aggro in Arena is always like just this loosely cobbled together series of like bad cards that you have to take just because they're small enough.
Right. Like, aggro in Arena means I am getting 1 mana's worth of stuff on turn 1. I'm getting 2 mana's worth of stuff on turn 2. I maybe get some like extra thing on turn 3, but probably just like the same thing.
Just whatever mana you're outputting, that's the amount of tempo you get.
Right.
And then have a little bit of reach, and you hope that's good enough. That's aggro in Arena.
This isn't like Pirate Warrior in Constructed, in which by turn 3 you've gotten out like 10 mana's worth of stats.
No. Because if you get that if you get that on turn 3, right? What are you doing on turn 7? You're winning the game way before turn 7. In Arena, in aggro, you still rarely win the game before turn 7. That very rarely happens. Because you're just a number of turns slower. It's just a different game. And all of these cards are not designed to kill aggro in Constructed, and they won't kill aggro in Constructed, most likely, because I assume Blizzard doesn't want to completely destroy an entire like archetype in Constructed. But they will in Arena. And it's because these cards aren't designed for Arena. These cards are designed like as, hey, this is a decently normal card that we like, and it'll make this type of deck seem fun, and you can play around with it, and, you know, it's fine for Constructed. But in Arena, these are consequences. I don't like... When KFT was about to come out, I was very excited for KFT. When Angora was coming out, I was very excited for Angora. When MSG was about to come out, I was super excited for MSG. And for good reason. That was still the best meta in terms of balance. I don't feel the same way about Kobolds and Catacombs. Not because the cards themselves aren't interesting. The cards are as interesting as anything I've seen in KFT, if not more so. Not because I don't like any whatever. It's just that these are very clearly designed, not just without Arena in mind, but also, as it so happens, like coincidentally, are awful for Arena. Not just as in like, oh, I can't pick these cards, but as in they're decent enough or even really good enough that people will pick them, and they will be uniform. Like 80% of these cards are just like negative impact on Arena, skill-wise. And like frustration-wise, way higher impact.
Yep. So I think that's a good way to summarize our concerns about this expansion. I'm still looking forward to it, right? Like any sort of expansion, I'm just like, I'm gonna give it a shot. We've only had about 50 cards revealed so far. There's a lot more. There's like 80 more cards to be revealed. And as people have said, a lot of the more boring cards are revealed in the card dump. Right?
Yes.
They tend to favor the cool, interesting cards in the individual reveals, and then we get the Psychotrons and Bog Creepers during the card dump.
Like, I think we're at the point right now, though, where it's already like they can maybe release 1 or 2 more swing cards that are good, and that's it. And anything more than that, even if everything else is a Yeti, this game is still trending higher on swing than what we currently have. It's always going to trend higher on RNG, or that boat has sailed. This expansion is going to up RNG, like all across, right? Constructed, Arena, everything. More so Arena. Like, I think swings, they're pretty much, that boat's pretty much already sailed also. So maybe they won't totally destroy the curve. But having a curve doesn't mean all that much if the game is mostly RNG and dominated by swings, because the curve is the opposite of swing. The curve is like the antithesis of the swing. It's snowball. It's the opposite, right? Like, you don't want it to get too snowball. You don't want it to get too easily swung.
Right.
So once you have swing, the curve stops mattering, because now the snowball doesn't matter. You would just swing it back with a giant board cleaner every time. Like,
Yep.
Swings are much more dangerous than snowball, because swings are designed to destroy snowball. And
Yep.
this is so far everything that's revealed, whereas KFT was all snowball-y, this is all swingy. So this is the counter to KFT, but KFT was generally fine. Like, we've been playing the KFT meta for like a month now. It's not like that snowball-y.
No, I think a lot of a lot of people complain about Bone Bear, right? But it's one of those things where I think people definitely tend to over exaggerate it, and I don't know how to put this. Bone Bear punishes bad players more, right?
Yep,
It just,
much more.
much more, and yeah, we can argue about whether that's a good thing or not. Like, specifically cards that heavily punish bad players. Frostless Jaina is one of them, right? Like,
Yep.
that is a card in which I think might be the biggest difference in terms of, if you're a good player, you will lose to that a very small percentage of time. If you're a bad player, you'll lose to that every single time.
Yeah.
So we can argue back and forth about whether that's a good thing for the game and whether that's good design. But yeah, I think the KFT meta has been very fair in terms of what you can do on the board. And even like a lot of the premium cards, like, I never look at it as saying, this is like insurmountable, right? Like, Cobalt Scalebane, really good card, but it's not insurmountable. Like, the lead that they get and the stats that they get.
Okay. Let's end this with what we're about to play. We're about to play Priest. So let's talk about Priest, just generally, because this meta is not going to last for too much longer. But Priest has kind of a reputation on what they're doing in this KFT meta. And from the new cards in the Kobolds and Catacombs that is coming out, it's not really going to change. In fact, it's just going to intensify. What priests are going to do is they're going to kind of be on the board or try to fight for the board, and then they're either going to succeed and you lose, or they're going to fail and then rely on a few cards to flip the board on you. And the new expansion is going to have cards for both of these. The flip the board cards, like Extreme Dustbear, the try to gain the board early on and hold it with the unidentified elixir. So that's generally what Priest do, and as usual, Priest is, we've held this opinion since like Classic. It's just the worst designed class in the game, because it doesn't rely on the skill of the Priest player, and it doesn't rely on the skill of the player playing against the Priest. It's more about, what does the player playing against the Priest happen to play? And if they happen to play the wrong cards that they have no way of knowing is the wrong cards, then Priest wins. If they play the right cards that they have no way of knowing is the right cards, and they're going to try to play in the same way every time anyway, because it's really just like tempo, 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 then they win.
Priest is consistently, like, if you ask good arena players, like, which class do you not want to face in the arena? And it doesn't matter. If it's at 2 wins, I fear them. If it's at like 11 wins, oh my god, I definitely fear it.
Yep.
Right? But
and it's statistically backed up too. The win rate differential between Priest and other classes is smallest between good players and average players.
Because it's like what ADWCTA says, how do good players win? It's by edging out the advantages starting from turn 1, right? Turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. And so many times you reach a decision point in which you're just like, well, okay, all the advantage I've built up, it could be erased by Potion Madness. It can be erased by Dragonfire Potion. It can be erased by like
all
this
these different
or that.
things. Like priests have at this point, they have so much variety in their removals that they have everything covered besides 4 attack minions with more than 5 health. Like they have everything else covered, and you have no idea what they have. Like the only way to test for something is to play into it. So what do? You lose or you win because they don't have it. One or the other.
Yeah. So with a class like Priest, man, and it's only gotten worse, right? Because I can say a year and a half or 2 years ago, I still never liked facing Priest, but they were a bit more predictable. They didn't have Potion Madness, which meant you could really sort of take advantage of the early game, right? So before stuff like Cabal Talon Priest, before Potion Madness.
Priest. How was that card ever allowed out of like...
I don't know. I'm not sure. But, even like way back when, I used to just be like, man, if they just drop Northshire Cleric and coin into Valen's Chosen, I'm done, right? Like, that's it. There is no way for me to come back if he just coins Valen's Chosen and has a 3/7 that whenever he heals, he draws a card.
And instead of Valen's Chosen, we have Unidentified Elixir now.
Yay.
Still 2 attack, still 2 health, which is enough to make it survive a turn, and then it has a random bonus effect instead of 2 more health.
Right. So, once again, look, we're in a spot in which Priest has even more tools, and the amount of times, because I do this every single turn, the amount of times that during turn I'm just like, okay, this will probably lose me the game. Or if my like win expectancy was like 70%, I'm like, if they have this card, it'll go down to 20%, right? The amount of times in which I go through that sort of risk calculation, I'm just, when I'm facing Priest, I'm just like, this is ridiculous. It shouldn't be like this.
No, it shouldn't be. And like, Priest is the only class where when I'm playing it, I'm like, I really wish I was a 50% player. Because then I can make these decisions so much easier. Meaning I would just be like, yup, play into it, like everything. Because that's the right answer. And that's how you're supposed to do it against a Priest. But you can't, because if you keep doing that against a Priest, you're not going to hit your 70 whatever percent win rate that you normally want to hit as a good player. And I think you'll start feeling it. And like looking at your own win rate, you start feeling it around like 65% win rate. Which is not even like terribly high, but like around that win rate, Priest starts getting really annoying. Because then it starts really impacting your decision making. Where if you're like thinking about it the right way, you start realizing that you're going to catch 22. And when you get to like over 70%, you really shouldn't play into anything. But at the same time, then you kind of just accept that you lose the game because you can't tempo against a Priest. Like, so I don't know how you win. It's always bad. It's always insanely bad to play against a Priest.
Right. Or what, and there are answers to this. What ends up happening is the decisions that I make in which I would consider like safe or just less, right? You just have less of an impact. Like you recognize the fact that you have less of an impact on those games and you play around that fact, which is not comforting, but it's like when you figure that out, you will... That's just all you can do, right? Sometimes you just need to identify this is the limit of what I can do in this matchup.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that about covers it for today's Lightforge. We'll have another one for you next week with a new round of cards that are coming out, and that'll be right before the card dump. Once again, card dump is likely, we're predicting, December 4th. And if that is the case, then our card rating, tier list card rating stream where we go over every single card and we go over the entire predicted meta and all the class balance, all that stuff is going to be on the 5th of December. Okay, so until next weekend, see you guys. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Get some food, man.